Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hi, everyone. Christina Eanes here. I am excited to have on the show today Nick Halaris. Welcome, Nick.
Hi, Christina. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, before we dive in, can you share a little bit about your background with our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. I think after going to law school and deciding that there was no way in the world I was going to be a lawyer, I dabbled in some business. I did just some consulting work, and then ultimately found myself as a real estate entrepreneur. And so spent the greater part of the last 20 years investing in developing properties, mostly in Los Angeles, but also in some other places in the country like Atlanta. And have built several businesses that I own in that space, and still run and operate. So have Metros Capital here locally in Los Angeles. We invest and develop multifamily, and we have a new business called Westward Homes, where we're helping homeowners actually rebuild from the fires that happened here, which is a new venture for us, but it's been really satisfying because we can take our investment skills and like use them to help people in a different kind of way. So that's been really satisfying. And then I'm also a writer. I have a newsletter called Profit Plus, which has been going now for 5 years. And the theme of Profit Plus is, trying to help people learn how to approach building wealth, but to do so with the lens of authenticity and not compromising kind of who they are and what they believe in. And so I read about a lot of different things, politics, even sometimes, and the relationship of the individual to the government. But the through line is that. And then also have my own podcast, which is of a similar vein. So
yes,
involved in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
I love it. Well, and you've learned a lot through all of that, which I'm glad you're here to share those learnings with us today.
Yes.
Yes.
Hard lessons learned in many cases.
Hard earned, yes.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about the mindset shift that creates lasting success. So let's start out maybe with the mindset. What would you like to share with us there?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this exact sort of question ever since I started writing the newsletter. So 5+ years. And I think I finally sort of figured it out, which is the reason I started writing, the reason I got into it is I had gone through this really intense period of time in my life where I had, my business kind of implode, and I had lawsuits with partners, and it was just like a total mess. And that caused me to, at the same time, I was like having kids. I had an infant in the house and trying to get the mindset to be the best father I can be. And so it was just like transformational period. And I did a lot of thinking and reading and studying and journaling. It literally was like a 5-year period. And then I started writing the newsletter. And then 5 years later, I finally figured it out. So literally we're talking 10 years.
Evolution.
Yeah, evolution. And the way I'm thinking about it, or the way I like to describe it, is we have this phenomenon in our culture where people pursue success in a single-minded fashion. Mm-hmm. That's what they're taught in school. It's what they're taught from the culture, from movies, from everything. It's essentially this message like, oh my God, you have to be successful. And that's what everyone goes after. Not everyone, but a lot of people go after. And then I noticed this phenomenon. It happened to me. And then the more I've studied it, the more I realize it happens to a lot of people, is you get to that moment, you get to some success that you had, and you feel empty. You feel unhappy. Yeah. You feel like, what's the point? Or you want more, or whatever. And so there was this realization I had, which is like, wait a minute, that message of let's just get successful is actually not the right one. And after doing all the study, philosophy, and a lot of spiritual reading, actually, I think I've come up with an answer. There's probably not the answer, but not an. And it's around purpose, and it's around reorienting your life and the point of your life around serving others and serving your community. And there's so many ways to do this. Like when people think of service, serving the community or serving others, they think of like helping professions like education or nursing or medicine, or, running for office, or being like Mother Teresa type figure. But those are just like the most extreme manifestations. You can adopt this mindset at any moment, doing just about anything. And what I found and what I believe is that it can completely transform your life and bring you a kind of success that doesn't feel empty.
Yeah. I love that. And oftentimes when people think success, at least in American society, right, it's money and materialistic things and maybe rank or I don't know, right? So moving up. So can you go a little bit more into, because it sounds like you experienced some post-traumatic growth from
Yeah.
a very stressful situation. Can you maybe speak to those who could be in a similar stressful situation and how to, I don't want to say dig out of that hole and learn from it, but to transform your perception in that moment to evolve further?
Yeah. Yeah. Those moments, these like dark moments of my own personal crisis were some of the hardest, but they also were some of the best because allowed me to grow and allowed me to kind of figure out how I want to spend the rest of my life. And I think what happens to people, what happened to me certainly, is that when you're infected by this American culture, this American ethos of success, let's get rich, let's just call it what it is. Like America
Yeah.
is basically telling you to get rich as fast as possible. And you don't really stop to think about it. There's all kinds of opportunities for you to compromise your belief system, compromise your
Hmm.
values, go against your intuition. And what I learned in those moments is that as I started reflecting back about and in some cases talking to my lawyers about all of the things that I've been dealing with and got me in trouble, every single one of them was a function of me not listening to my intuition.
Mm.
And so, for example, like one of the biggest problems with my business, the first business that I started, was that it was fatally flawed from inception because I partnered with people that I had a different moral compass from.
Mm.
And it's not that these are bad people or anything like that, but like when it comes down to certain things that I really believed in about how we should conduct business, we had a different point of view. And that conflict was completely fatal. And I ignored that. I actually knew it at the beginning. I even have journal entries. I knew that there was this issue and I ignored it. And it literally cost me, 5-6 years of my life, millions of dollars in legal fees, ignoring just
Yeah.
that one fundamental intuition. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it was, man, that was painful. But I think what I would say to somebody who's going through something like that, like let's say they're in the depths of it, like to your question, is to really start paying attention to the intuition. And wherever there's something that feels wrong, like address that immediately. And it might be painful. You might have to have some very difficult conversations. You might have to walk away from things that are maybe in your financial interest, but you have to do that. And you have to keep doing that until you've sort of addressed all of these nagging things. If you're someone who's like waking up in the middle of the night worried about something, you should listen to that and you should follow through on it. It's a message for you
Yeah.
from your own intuition. So
I love that. Trust it as well. Yeah, it's funny that we're having this conversation this afternoon. Just this morning, I met a colleague, a former colleague for coffee, and she was glowing. And I hadn't seen her that way in a long time. It's because she recently left her old position. And when I saw her in that old position, I could just feel the tenseness coming from her, and she wasn't listening to her intuition until it got bad, and then she got out, and now she is just glowing. It's amazing
yeah.
the difference. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that story because I think a lot of times when people think about this subject and they think about a phrase like without compromising your integrity, the immediate impulse is to think about things like morals and law and there's a reason for that, but there's also a much bigger picture, which is that your intuition is sending you signals about how you should live your life. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, you lied or cheated or took a gray position. It can be like, hey, you're just in the wrong position, you're with the wrong people, this is not the
yeah,
opportunity for you. You want to be a writer, but you're over here doing business deals. It's sending you that. And so I really believe it can be very frightening, especially for people in midlife with responsibilities and kids and things like that. But I really believe that you got to follow through on that, um, almost regardless of where it takes you.
yeah. Okay, so let's talk to then that person who hasn't reached crisis point yet. Maybe, they're like, I don't feel good coming into work. I don't like it. It just feels, I like the people. I like the work. It just, what's the next step for them before they do hit crisis point? What do you think?
Yeah, that's another interesting one because I'm one of the things I've been doing recently is sort of ideating on a one-on-one coaching
Mm-hmm.
service, just because I've had a lot of people from my newsletter community reach out to me and ask various questions around various stages of help. And so I've been thinking about that exact question. And what really helped me and what I'm planning on doing in the coaching service is taking people through the process. It's an iterative process of really trying to get a better sense of what you really care about as a person. And you would think like everyone should just know that, but it's actually a very difficult question. Like if you haven't journaled, for example, for many years, or you haven't gone to therapy, or you haven't challenged yourself and challenged your self-understanding in a certain kind of way, you
Mm-hmm.
probably don't know what you care about. You don't know what you
Yeah.
believe in. And so for that person who's going into work feeling unmotivated, like certainly he or she has like a major signal from the universe. Like, okay, something is obviously not working here. And so the first step from that is to start thinking about it. And what I found the best way to do it is to just journal every single day
Mm.
and talk to close mentors and confidants, um, and do that over and over again until you start to get a sense of what the answer is.
Yeah, I like it. Well, let's move more into the world of wealth, which is where you're currently in. Um, I could take that so many different ways, but
Yeah.
but but so the mindset shift, I'm sure you see a lot. So people have a very particular story that they've been told and believe about how success happens or how wealth happens. Where do you see people getting in their own way as far as their mindsets in your area?
Yeah, I think that most people set off on this journey, this American journey, to get rich without really understanding what it is that produces wealth in
Mhm.
society. And so, like, they have a loose idea, right? Like, they know that, famous movie stars, for example, make a lot of money, or singers and musicians. They know that CEOs, so there's some clues, right? They have these
Mhm.
ideas, but like me, if they're anything like me, they haven't really thought through why that is, what's going on with that. And so I think there's sort of four areas that people should think about. Number one is positioning. So the mistake that a lot of people make in this capitalist system is in positioning. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're trying to make money in America, you have to be an owner, period. You do not want to work for somebody else. You could get lucky. You could be like the 0.001% of the people in the world and be like LeBron James and earn $50 million a year, right? Or the CEO of General Motors or whatever. You could do that and work for other people, and that's a pathway. But that is such an anomaly that that's not a great strategy. And so the better strategy is to, no matter what you do, make sure you're an owner. So if you're a young person, for example, and you don't really have a business idea, you're not ready to start your own company, uh, go work for a startup. Don't work for a corporation. Work for a startup and get shares. Get shares from day one, so you
Mm.
understand and at least give yourself a chance. Because what people don't realize is that if you go work for the big consulting firm or the big bank, you're never going to be an owner. Like,
Mhm.
it's literally that you have a 0% chance of being an owner. Whereas if you work at a startup, man, if that startup hits, you could be independently wealthy before you know it. And so
Yeah.
it's positioning is my first point. The second one is that you need to understand where the sort of wealth comes from in the system. And I've come to believe it comes from a few different places. Providing some kind of crazy value. So ultimately what people pay for is value. And so when you look at somebody like a musician, for example, they are providing like an unbelievable psychological value, and that's how they get incredibly wealthy. It's not
Yeah.
because they're cool or whatever. Their music makes people feel a certain way, and it adds a ton of value to people's lives psychically. Like, they're making people happy over and over and over again. And so that's like an extreme example, but there's other ways, like any career you want. be really good at providing value. Another way that wealth is created is through what I call variant perception. This is a term from the investing world, but variant perception is essentially when you see something about the world that's true that no one else sees.
Mm.
And so like Warren Buffett is a perfect example of someone who made a career of this, where he would look at these businesses and say like, man, I think that's worth a lot more than what the market is saying. So let me do that. And then the third one is creativity. And so creativity can mean a lot of different things, but if you look at the true path of all great wealth creation in history, really, it comes from creativity. So you could see it, like Elon Musk is an example of someone who used creativity in the context of technology. But there's also, like authors like the author of the creator of Harry Potter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Incredible creation, right? Like it's produced so much, that moment of creativity has produced so much value, all those books and movies and this and that. So those are the three things that I think people should think about. Its own positioning, and then doing one of those things
Mm-hmm.
to put yourself in the stream of actual wealth creation.
I love that. Well, and I love too under creativity that you mentioned technology, because I think a lot of people, when someone says creativity, they think artists, writers, that kind of thing. I don't know, painters, but their creativity can happen in so many ways. Accounting. I mean, probably want to be careful about creative accounting, make sure it's all in alignment, but right, people can be creative in so many different ways.
I totally agree. Actually, my accountant for my real estate business is a guy who's an incredibly creative mind. Like the American tax code is completely ridiculous,
Yeah.
and complex. Like it's
Yeah.
wild. But he's like a savant. Like he's studied it. He knows all the things that you're supposed to do. And so, yeah, I completely agree. And he has so many clients as a result of it. In
Yeah.
real estate, like especially in my industry, in real estate, it's incredibly complex and a system that you can sort of game. That's why Donald Trump never pays taxes. Yeah.
Creative, but in a good way, right? No,
Yeah.
just kidding.
Yeah, that might not be the best. If you care about America, like not paying taxes is probably not a good thing. But yeah.
I'm just messing with you. What else would you like to share with the audience about this topic? Where have we not gone yet?
Yeah, I think that one thing that I've been writing a lot about that I think is important for people to think about is to really examine the goal. We talked about this earlier, like the sort of default goal of our system is money.
Mm.
And look, I'm not one of these people who think that you shouldn't pursue money. I actually think living a good life in our modern world requires you to be financially savvy. And actually, the more money you have, the better. Maybe there's a point where it like tips over, like when the money starts to control you, when you can't, sleep at night because you're worried about all your houses, or I don't really know. I haven't reached that point. So I don't know. But there's probably a point where it's too much. But there's other things that you can go after. And so one of the things that I realized in my own crisis and introspection is that I actually really was interested in freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had made a series of decisions in my life, for example, to skip out on the corporate track, for example, to not take these high profile jobs at investment banks and things like that, because I didn't want to have no control over my life,
Yeah.
regardless of and I really think that people should think seriously about that as well. And fortunately, we live in a time, this is an incredible moment in human history, really, where you can kind of design your life. It's not true for everyone because we live in a very unfair world, but if certain things go well for you and go right for you, you can set up an incredible existence. You're an example of someone who's done that, right? You've created a business that allows you to express your creativity, but also to have a kind of lifestyle that you want, and you could do it forever. You don't have to retire. Where people who get in these tracks, they realize they want to retire because they have no freedom. And so we live in this crazy world where, man, because of technology and all these other things, you can have a life, whatever kind of life you want. And I really would encourage people to, as they're going through their introspection to think about their priorities on that front too.
Yeah. Don't wait for a personal crisis to get your priorities straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And
Yeah.
on that point, like I've been really thinking hard about whether it's possible to go through life without having a personal crisis.
Yeah.
I don't think it
Or
is.
don't let it go too deep.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think it is because, like, I think everybody essentially at some point they make a series of decisions that they think are right, and then they realize like they compromise somewhere, and then maybe there's a few people on Earth that don't have that, but everyone else
Learn from the lesser adversities than
totally. Like basically, for young people, my advice is don't follow the path of the dark side. Don't end up in jail like these young kids at these crypto firms. Don't end up with a divorce and crappy family life because you haven't prioritized taking care of your kids or whatever. Like, don't make
Yeah.
these really big mistakes. And then when the crisis comes for you, it will be of a nature of kind of like maybe like your friend, like they need it's a push forward in a new direction into the open space or into the forest if we're using the hero's journey,
Yeah.
rather than like digging out of a hole like I was digging out of a hole. It's a different character.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, totally get that.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you say freedom. It's funny. I do just a little bit of a like write 3 things I'm grateful for every day.
Yep.
And the first thing is freedom. I so love having the freedom of being an entrepreneur and being able to set my own schedule and be creative, all of that stuff, being an owner, right? Yeah. So I love that you mentioned that. And I know you help people in these positions. So can you share a little bit more about your products and or services?
Yeah. So I mentioned the coaching. The coaching service is coming out soon. It's relatively new. But if you're interested at all in it, you can just go to my website, nickhalaris.com, and subscribe to my newsletter called Profit Plus. It's for free. I publish every Friday, and as soon as I'm ready to launch the coaching service, I will be talking about it on that website and the newsletter. But my idea behind that, or my intentionality, is to help people figure out how they can reorient their lives. Like we mentioned at the beginning, to make this sort of meta move. Like in my view, the meta move is we have this culture that really pushes people to be self-oriented and for the ego sort of to be out of control, to use a psychological term. And I'm trying to get people to reorient it and say, okay, how can I position myself to be helpful to others? How can I position myself to be of value to my community? And you can define your community however you want, and
Yeah.
But when you make that move, you align yourself with like philosophical and spiritual truths. Like human beings are interconnected, we feel different, but we're actually all like one thing. And every time you align yourself with that, good things happen. Like there's sort of a magic to it. You have to kind of believe it. And, for some people, maybe it's too woo or whatever, but it's a real phenomenon. And that's what I'm going to try to convince people of. From the people that I do have talked to without, just informally, if you're finding me, you already believe it's possible. But yeah, that's
I love
plan.
it.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll send them to your website.
Cool. Thank you.
What is your final piece of advice? Although everything's been awesome, but what your final closing thoughts here?
Final closing thoughts is number one, before we close, I got to talk to you about escape rooms.
Oh.
So my family.
We don't have enough time. No, I'm kidding.
I'm not answering your question, but I have kids that are like 10 and 7. We're on our 3rd escape room.
Oh.
And I know you're on like hundreds, right?
We're over 1,000 now.
Wow, that's incredible. We've been having so much fun with it. And I really love this analogy that you came up with about how sort of life is like an escape room. It's a really great analogy. And actually you could go really deep with it. Like you could nerd out on like Hindu and Buddhist philosophy. And, and there's actually quite a bit of like truth to the idea that there's like an escape. And even in the Western tradition, right? Like original sin, like there's this whole like line of thinking about, but we've absolutely been loving it, and I'm getting better at it, which at first, we couldn't even get out of these things, but now we are. The last one we got out of.
Uh-huh.
and the kids are getting smart with it. It's been really like a rewarding
Oh,
experience. Yeah.
well, you have some great ones in the LA area.
Okay, we've been
Yeah.
doing this on vacation, so maybe we'll have to try the LA
Oh my
one.
gosh, you have
Yeah.
hundreds in your area.
Okay, nice. All right, well, we'll talk offline about that.
There we go.
But I think my final piece of advice is you gotta the trick to this success game, and the success I'm talking about is not like rich enough to buy a Ferrari. It's like real
Right.
success where you can sleep at night, and success where you wake up feeling excited to go to work like you do.
Yeah.
The trick is to do two things. One, to clear away all the baggage and garbage in your brain that's blocking you from seeing your true self.
Mm.
And usually that's just basically fear and ego and selfishness. Get rid of all that, and then learn how to listen to your life. Listening to your life is like, again, kind of like this spiritual concept, but it's really practical. It's like paying attention to things like what people make you feel good, what
Mhm.
interactions light you up, what makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, what drags you down, what makes you feel crappy. And instead of just like noticing these things and either being happy about them or being annoyed, actually be like, okay, draw a conclusion from it and say, okay, the universe is telling me to go in that direction and avoid that direction. And I feel like if you do that for long enough, you're going to figure out what your path is, and
Yeah.
you're going to find a way.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nick.
Thank you so much. It's been such a fun conversation. Thanks for having me on.
Transform your organization with Eanes Training. Our premier interpersonal skills training programs are tailored to enhance your organization's employees in communication, emotional intelligence, leadership, and more. We have a catalog of expert-led courses designed to meet the dynamic needs of today's workforce. With highly engaging in-person, hybrid, and remote sessions, we can help elevate your organization's performance and success. Learn more at eanestraining.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills, and until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.